Elia's wren woke up to the sound of something very small screaming very loudly. "You knocked me up." The words echoed through the shared living unit, bouncing off the curved metal walls of the space station apartment. Elias jolted upright on his sleep platform, heart pounding. For a moment he thought he was still dreaming. Then the screaming continued, sharp and panicked, mixed with rapid footsteps. "No, no, no, this cannot be happening. This is impossible. This is illegal. This is catastrophic." Elias rubbed his eyes and sat up. He was still wearing his station-issued sleep clothes. The lights in the room flickered on as the apartment system sensed elevated stress levels. "Kiri," he called out carefully. "What's wrong?" A blur of movement shot past the doorway. Kiri, his tiny alien roommate, appeared in the center of the room, shaking from head to toe. She was barely half his height, with smooth pale blue skin and large dark eyes that seemed too big for her small face. Her thin arms were wrapped tightly around her own body as if she were trying to hold herself together. She pointed at him with a trembling finger. "You," she cried, "you did this." Elias froze. "Did what?" Her eyes filled with tears. "You activated my cycle. You contaminated my living space. You have doomed me." Before Elias could even begin to understand what she was talking about, Kiri slammed her palm against the wall panel. Symbols flashed across the surface in a language Elias couldn't read. The floor vibrated slightly. "Kiri, wait," he said, swinging his legs off the bed. Too late. A low hum filled the room. Energy barriers snapped into place, cutting off exits. The walls shifted smoothly, rearranging themselves. The apartment transformed in seconds, folding inward like a machine closing its fist. Elias stumbled back as the room reshaped itself around him. "What are you doing?" he shouted. "Emergency cultural containment," Kiri yelled back. "Stay where you are." The floor slid beneath his feet, carrying him into a smaller chamber. The door sealed behind him with a heavy metallic sound. The hum grew louder, then stopped. Silence. Elias stood alone in an unfamiliar room, breathing hard. The air felt thicker, warmer. Soft lights glowed from the walls. The space was clearly designed for Kiri's species. Low ceiling, curved surfaces, and strange symbols carved into the walls. He looked around slowly. "This is your bedroom," he muttered. On the other side of the transparent energy barrier, Kiri stood shaking, her hands pressed against the shield. Her eyes were wide with fear. "You are not allowed to leave," she said, her voice breaking. "Not until this is resolved." Elias raised both hands slowly, palms open. "Kiri," he said calmly, "I need you to slow down and explain. I have no idea what you're talking about." She let out a shaky breath, then another. Her species' breathing was fast when stressed, almost fluttering. "I monitored my internal status this morning," she said. "There is a resonance shift, the beginning of a reproductive phase." Elias blinked. "What?" Her voice rose again. "It only happens under very specific conditions, conditions that were not present before you arrived." Elias felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "Kiri, I swear to you," he said slowly, "I didn't touch you, I didn't do anything." She stared at him, horrified. "Touch," she repeated. Why would touching be required? That made his confusion even worse. "Okay," Elias said, choosing his words carefully. "Then what exactly do you think I did?" Kiri hesitated, then turned away from him, pacing back and forth on her side of the barrier. She spoke rapidly, as if afraid that if she stopped talking, everything would fall apart. "My people are extremely sensitive to environmental influence," she said. "Emotional states, neural patterns, prolonged exposure." Elias frowned. "You mean thoughts?" "Yes," she snapped. "Intent, presence, mental rhythm." He stared at her in disbelief. "You're saying I thought you pregnant?" "No," she shouted. "I am saying your mind is incompatible with known safety models." Elias ran a hand through his hair. This was going very wrong very fast. "Kiri," he said gently, "we've been roommates for 6 months. Nothing like this has ever happened." "That is what makes it worse," she whispered. "It should not be possible." Outside the chamber, alarms began to sound faintly. The station's emergency system had detected the sudden activation of a sealed cultural protocol. Kiri flinched at the noise. "They will come," she said. "Authorities, medical observers, cultural enforcement." "And what will they think?" Elias asked. She didn't answer right away. "Kiri," he pressed. "They will think you are a hazard," she said quietly. Elias swallowed. "That's not fair," he said. "I didn't do anything wrong." "I know," she said, her voice small. "That is what terrifies me." She slid down against the wall, sitting on the floor, her knees drawn to her chest. Elias noticed her hands were shaking badly now. For a moment he forgot his own fear. "Kiri," he said softly, stepping closer to the barrier, "look at me." She hesitated, then lifted her eyes. "I'm not angry," he said, "and I'm not going to hurt you. Whatever this is, we'll figure it out." She stared at him as if trying to understand how he could be so calm. "How are you not panicking?" she asked. He gave a small, tired smile. "Because panicking never helps." That answer seemed to affect her more than anything else he had said. Her breathing slowed slightly. "My people would be screaming," she said, "breaking objects, calling for exile protocols." "That doesn't sound helpful either," Elias replied. A faint, almost hysterical laugh escaped her. "You don't understand. If this is confirmed, I could lose my position, my housing, my future." Elias felt the weight of her words settle over him. "Then we don't let that happen," he said simply. Before she could respond, the room shook slightly. A calm but authoritative voice echoed through the chamber. "Containment unit acknowledged. Occupants remain stationary." Kiri pressed her hands to her ears. "They're here," she whispered. Elias squared his shoulders. "Then let's tell the truth," he said. The voice spoke again, closer now. "Human resident Elias Wren, alien resident Kiri of the Lethari. State the cause of emergency." Kiri looked at Elias, fear written clearly across her face. He met her gaze and nodded once. "We don't know the cause yet," he said loudly, "but no one has been harmed, and no laws were broken." There was a pause. "Clarify, no laws were broken," the voice said. Kiri swallowed hard. "There was no physical contact," she said. "No coercion, no intent." Another pause, longer this time. "Human," the voice said, "do you deny responsibility?" Elias took a deep breath. "I deny wrongdoing," he said, "but I won't abandon her." Kiri's eyes widened. "Elias," she whispered. "If something happened because of me existing near her," he continued, "then I'll help fix it. That's what humans do." Silence filled the chamber again. Behind the barrier, Kiri stared at him as if seeing him for the first time, not as a dangerous unknown, but as something else. Something steady. For the first time since she woke up, her hands stopped shaking. Outside, unseen observers recalculated their assumptions. Inside the sealed bedchamber, a human and a tiny alien faced an impossible misunderstanding together, unaware that this moment would soon force the entire station, and perhaps the galaxy, to rethink what it truly meant to live beside humanity. The room stayed sealed long after the station authorities arrived. Elias could hear them outside the chamber now, soft footsteps, low voices speaking in several languages, the faint hum of scanning devices. None of it was loud, but the presence felt heavy like pressure on his chest. Inside the bedchamber, time moved slowly. Kiri sat curled against the wall on her side of the energy barrier. She had stopped shaking, but her posture was tight, as if she were holding herself together through pure will. Elias stood near the barrier, careful not to crowd her, his hands resting loosely at his sides. Minutes passed, then more. Finally, the calm station voice returned, smoother and colder than before. "Preliminary scans confirm an internal biological shift in the Lethari resident," the voice said. "Further analysis is required." Kiri flinched. Elias spoke before fear could take over the room again. "What does that mean for her?" he asked. There was a pause, then a different voice answered, older, sharper, clearly not human. "It means this condition is real," the alien said, "and unprecedented." Kiri squeezed her eyes shut. I told you, she whispered. Elias felt anger stir in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. Unprecedented doesn't mean dangerous, he said. It just means new. New things are often dangerous, the alien replied. Especially when humans are involved. Elias clenched his jaw but said nothing. The barrier shimmered slightly as additional scans passed through it. Lines of light traced over Kiri's body. She gasped softly and wrapped her arms around herself. Please, she said quietly. Don't isolate me. There was no immediate response. Elias took a step closer to the barrier. She's scared, he said. If you need information, talk to us, not around us. Another long pause followed. Then the voice returned, less sharp than before. Explain, it said. In your own words. Kiri hesitated, then looked at Elias. He gave her a small nod. My species, she began, her voice thin but steady, does not reproduce through physical contact. Our reproductive cycle begins through resonance, long-term exposure to compatible neural environments. Define compatible, the voice demanded. Calm, Kiri said. Stable, predictable, focused. Elias frowned slightly. That sounded familiar. Human neural patterns, Kiri continued, were classified as neutral, safe, no risk. And now, the voice asked. And now, she said, her voice breaking, my body disagrees. The room went quiet again. Elias spoke up. So you're saying, he said, that just by living normally, thinking, working, existing, I triggered this? Possibly, the alien voice replied, or accelerated a dormant state. That's not consent, Elias said firmly, and it's not an attack. Intent is irrelevant, the voice answered. Outcome is what matters. Elias felt his fists tighten. That's easy to say when you're not the one being blamed, he said. Kiri looked at him sharply. Elias, please. No, he said gently, then looked back toward the unseen observers. You're treating this like contamination, like I'm a weapon. I'm not. Human history suggests otherwise, the voice replied. Elias let out a slow breath. Human history also suggests we fix problems we cause, even by accident, he said. So let me help. Another voice joined the conversation now, softer, more curious. Help how? It asked. Elias glanced at Kiri. We need to understand what's actually happening, he said. Not just react to it, Kiri nodded slowly. My species stopped studying early-stage resonance centuries ago, she admitted. It was considered taboo, dangerous knowledge. That's convenient, Elias muttered. Kiri gave a weak, apologetic smile. We survive by avoiding risk. And humans survive by running straight into it, Elias replied. For the first time there was a hint of something like amusement in the air. Human Elias Wren, the softer voice said, are you proposing research? Yes, he said immediately. With consent, with safeguards. And if you are the cause, the sharper voice asked. Then I stay, Elias said. I don't leave her alone with this. Kiri's breath caught. You don't have to, I know, he said quietly. But I want to. Silence followed again, deeper this time. Finally, the station voice spoke. Containment status revised. Full isolation denied. Supervised observation authorized. The barrier shimmered and changed color, shifting from solid blue to a softer, translucent white. Kiri let out a shaky breath she had clearly been holding for a long time. They're not taking me away, she whispered. Elias smiled slightly. Told you. The barrier remained in place, but the atmosphere changed. The pressure eased. The lights softened. A small panel slid open on Elias' side of the room, projecting a holographic display filled with symbols and data streams. Human, the voice said, you will assist in analysis under supervision. Elias stepped forward without hesitation. Gladly. Hours passed as data flowed. Elias explained human brainwave patterns, emotional regulation techniques, and stress response conditioning. He described how humans learned to remain calm under pressure, not because they lacked fear, but because fear could be managed. Kiri listened closely, her fear slowly giving way to fascination. You train your minds, she said, on purpose. We have to, Elias replied. Our world is loud. As scans continued, something strange became clear. Whenever Elias focused, really focused on problem-solving, Kiri's internal readings stabilized. When his attention drifted, her readings fluctuated again. The observers noticed too. Correlation confirmed, the softer voice said. Human cognitive focus appears to act as a stabilizing field. Kiri stared at the data. So I'm not broken, she asked quietly. No, Elias said. You're reacting. The sharper voice spoke again, less hostile now. This has never been recorded. That doesn't make it bad, Elias said. Just new. Kiri looked at him, her large eyes filled with something warmer now, trust. I thought you would be afraid of me, she admitted. Or angry, Elias shrugged. You panicked, that's allowed. She let out a small laugh, then grew serious. If this continues, she said, I may not be able to live near others of my kind. Elias didn't answer right away. What about humans? He asked. She tilted her head. What about them? Are we dangerous to you? He asked gently. She studied him for a long moment. No, she said finally. You're grounding. That word echoed in Elias' mind. Outside the chamber, observers exchanged looks. Assumptions shifted. The station had always classified humans as adaptable, aggressive, unpredictable. No one had thought to classify them as stabilizers. As the lights dimmed slightly to indicate rest cycle, Kiri moved closer to the barrier, not touching it, just near. Thank you for staying, she said softly. Elias leaned back against the wall, exhaustion finally catching up to him. That's what roommates do, he replied. Neither of them knew what would happen next, but one thing was already clear. Humanity had once again changed something simply by being present, and the galaxy was only just beginning to understand the consequences. The next cycle began without warning. Elias woke to a sharp tone from the station system and a sudden change in the air. The lights in the bedchamber brightened slightly, shifting to a cool white. On the other side of the barrier, Kiri stirred from her rest, her eyes opening wide as she felt it too. Something was different. The calm stability from before was gone. Kiri pressed a hand to her chest, breathing faster. The data panel on the wall flickered to life, numbers rising in uneven patterns. No, she whispered. Not again. Elias was already on his feet. Kiri, talk to me, he said. What's happening? The resonance is spiking, she said, fear creeping back into her voice. It shouldn't be doing this. Outside the chamber, activity exploded. Footsteps rushed past. Voices overlapped. New scanning fields swept through the room, stronger than before. The softer observer voice spoke quickly now. Instability detected, condition progressing faster than projected. The sharper voice followed. Human presence may be acting as both stabilizer and trigger. Elias frowned. That doesn't make sense. It does, Kiri said weakly. Your mind calms the process, but it also awakens it. Elias felt a tight knot form in his chest. So being near me helps you, he said slowly, but also pushes this forward. Yes, she said. I think my body has never adapted to something like you before. The word you hung heavy in the air. Before Elias could respond, the barrier suddenly brightened, hardening again from soft white to solid blue. Containment level increased, the station voice announced. All subjects remained stationary. Kiri's eyes widened. No, she said. Please don't. Human Elias Wren, the sharper voice said, step away from the barrier. Elias didn't move. If I do, he said, her condition will worsen. That is not confirmed, the voice replied. Elias gestured toward the data panel. It's right there, he said. Every time I disengage, her readings spike. There was hesitation now, debate. Elias could feel it. Kiri slid down against the wall again, her strength draining fast. Elias, she whispered, if they separate us completely, this could spiral. Elias turned toward the unseen observers. You want control, he said. I get that, but you're going to hurt her if you treat this like a threat instead of a condition. Silence. Then a new voice joined, deep, calm, unmistakably human. This is Dr. Hannah Weiss, Xenoneurology, the voice said. I've reviewed the data. Elias let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Doctor, he said. Elias, she replied. You've been busy. She continued, addressing the others. The correlation is clear. Human cognitive focus isn't causing harm. Sudden removal is. The sharper alien voice objected immediately. You are suggesting continued exposure. I'm suggesting controlled exposure, Dr. Weiss said. With boundaries. Kiri lifted her head. You mean he can stay? She asked softly. For now, Dr. Weiss replied. Under supervision. The barrier dimmed slightly, no longer glowing aggressively. Elias moved closer again, careful, deliberate. As he did, the readings on the panel began to slow, smoothing into calmer patterns. Kiri noticed too. It's working, she whispered. Elias crouched slightly so he was closer to her level. Focus on my voice, he said. Just listen. She nodded, her breathing slowly matching his pace. Outside, observers watched in silence. Minutes passed. The crisis eased, but the tension did not. Dr. Weiss spoke again. There's another issue, she said. This condition is evolving. What does that mean? Elias asked. For your species, she said, resonance phases end naturally. For hers, we don't know. Kiri's hands trembled again. Unknown outcomes, she said. That's what they tell you before exile. Elias shook his head. Not this time, he said. The sharper voice returned, colder now. This situation cannot continue indefinitely. The station is not equipped for long-term human Lethari resonance. Then adapt, Elias said simply. That is not how the galaxy works, the voice replied. Elias straightened. Then maybe that's the problem. A murmur rippled through the observers. Dr. Weiss cleared her throat. There is another option, she said. Risky, experimental. Kiri looked up quickly. What option? A controlled neural dampening field, Dr. Weiss explained. Designed to soften human cognitive output without removing the human. Elias frowned. You want to dull my mind. Temporarily, she said. It could reduce stimulation while keeping stability. Kiri shook her head immediately. No, she said. That would hurt him. Elias blinked, surprised. I'll be fine, he said. She looked at him fiercely. You don't know that, she said. Your mind is who you are. That stopped him. The room went quiet again. Dr. Weiss spoke carefully. The alternative is complete separation, she said. Which we now believe would be dangerous for Kiri. The sharper voice added, and continued exposure may permanently alter both subjects. Elias closed his eyes briefly, thinking. Then he opened them. Run the dampening test, he said. On me. Kiri's eyes filled with panic. No, she said. Elias, please. He looked at her, calm and steady. You trusted me, he said. Now trust that I know my limits. She swallowed hard, torn. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. The words hit him harder than he expected. I'm not going anywhere, he said softly. The field activated without ceremony. A low hum filled the room. Elias felt pressure behind his eyes, like trying to think through thick fog. His thoughts slowed, not vanished but softened. He swayed slightly, catching himself against the wall. Kiri, he said, forcing focus. Are you okay? She stared at the panel, then at him. My readings, they're stable, she said, more than before. But she didn't look relieved. She looked afraid for him. Outside, alarms flared suddenly. Unexpected feedback detected, the station voice announced. Elias gasped as the fog in his mind thickened. Too strong, Dr. Weiss said sharply. Pull it back. The hum rose, then wavered. Kiri slammed her palm against the barrier. Stop it, she cried. You're hurting him. Elias slid down to one knee, breathing hard. His thoughts fractured, memories blurring. But through it all, one thing remained clear. Kiri, her voice, her fear, he focused on that. Slowly, painfully, his mind pushed back, not through force but through will. The reading spiked, then settled. The dampening field collapsed. Elias slumped against the wall, exhausted but conscious. Kiri let out a sob of relief. It rejected you, she said in disbelief. Your mind resisted. Dr. Weiss sounded stunned. The human neural structure compensated, she said. adapted in real time. The sharper voice was silent now. Elias laughed weakly. "Guess I'm hard to turn off," he said. Kiri moved closer to the barrier again, her hands hovering near it. "You scared me," she said. "Sorry," he replied. "Didn't mean to." She looked at him for a long moment. "My people believe resonance means dependency," she said quietly. "Weakness." "And now?" Elias asked. She met his eyes. "Now I think it means connection," she said. Outside the chamber, conclusions were being rewritten. Humans were no longer just unpredictable. They were resilient in ways no one had planned for. And inside the sealed bedchamber, as exhaustion settled and fear slowly eased, one truth became impossible to ignore. Whatever this condition was becoming, it was no longer something Kiri faced alone. And whatever line humanity had just crossed, there was no going back. The hum of the bedchamber had become almost normal, but neither Elias nor Kiri dared to move too fast. Outside, the station continued its observation, silent but heavy with the weight of expectation. Inside, the air was thick, not with fear this time, but with possibility. Kiri leaned against the barrier, her large eyes fixed on the data panel as numbers danced across the display. Every fluctuation, every spike was a small earthquake for her species, and she felt it in her bones. She pressed her hands together and spoke quietly. "I've never seen readings stabilize like this," she said. "Not with anyone before." Elias crouched nearby, careful to stay on his side of the barrier. "We've been adjusting in real time," he said. "That's why it worked. You can't predict humans. We're unpredictable in ways even science can't always account for." Kiri gave a small, almost shy smile. "Unpredictable is dangerous." "Sometimes," Elias admitted, "but sometimes it's also the solution." Her eyes widened and she looked at him. "The solution?" "Yes," he said, standing slowly. "This isn't just a problem, it's an opportunity. Your body doesn't understand humans. That's why the resonance is strange, but strange isn't always bad, it can be fixed." Kiri tilted her head. "Fixed? You mean reversed?" Elias shook his head. "Not reversed, controlled, managed, carefully guided so it doesn't spiral out of control. You won't lose yourself and I won't be removed. We can make it safe." She stared at him, unsure whether to trust his confidence. "And the station? They'll supervise," he said, "but we're the ones who decide the approach, not just them." A soft alarm sounded, drawing both their attention. The panel projected new information, a detailed neural map of Kiri's brain patterns over time. The peaks and troughs of the resonance were clear now, more predictable than before. Elias studied it carefully, tracing his finger along the holographic lines, imagining ways to influence them safely. "This is it," he said. "If we can dampen the spikes without eliminating the natural rhythm, you'll be stable. You'll be safe. And nothing irreversible will happen." Kiri blinked rapidly. "And you're willing to help me through it?" Elias smiled faintly. "Of course. That's what humans do when we make a mess, even by accident, we fix it." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Okay, we try your way." Elias reached for a console on his side and started adjusting the settings. The dampening tech Dr. Weiss had set up was ready, but he made small changes, trusting intuition as much as data. Kiri's eyes followed every movement, a mixture of awe and nervousness. "You're so calm," she murmured, "even now." "I have to be," he said. "If I panic, it'll make things worse for both of us." He activated the field. The room hummed low and steady. Kiri's body shivered slightly as the energy wrapped around her, but the spikes began to flatten. The numbers on the panel smoothed out, showing a more manageable rhythm. "You feel that?" Elias asked. "Your body's responding." Kiri nodded, eyes wide. Yes, it's different." Hours passed in this delicate balance. Elias guided Kiri's attention, teaching her to focus, to match her breathing with his calm voice. Each spike that threatened to surge was softened by his presence and direction. Slowly, stability returned. This might actually work," Kiri whispered. I can feel control, not like panic, but balance. Exactly, Elias said. Your resonance isn't broken, it just needed guidance. Outside the barrier, observers leaned closer, scanning everything. Their whispers were quiet but intense. For the first time, human intervention was not just tolerated, it was being studied as a potential solution for a condition thought impossible to manage. One of the alien observers finally spoke aloud. The human, he adapts in real time. Yes, Dr. Weiss said. And his presence does not harm the subject. In fact, it stabilizes her. Kiri glanced at Elia's, relief and wonder mingling in her expression. So, I'm not doomed. No, Elia said. You're safe. We just have to keep doing this step by step. The challenge wasn't over. Each day brought new small fluctuations, and Kiri had to learn to trust both the technology and Elia's guidance. But for the first time, she felt hope. Over the next cycle, the two of them worked closely together. Elias remained calm and patient, adjusting the field whenever necessary, teaching Kiri techniques to steady herself. She learned to anticipate her body's changes, breathing rhythmically and focusing on the sound of his voice. Slowly, the panic that had gripped her began to fade. I think I understand now, she said one evening, exhausted but calmer than she had been in weeks. Your presence, it's not just calming, it's part of the process. Yes, Elias said, nodding. Your body needs guidance, not isolation. That's why I stayed. Kiri smiled faintly, a small but genuine expression. I was afraid I might have to face this alone. You're not, he said firmly. I'm here, and we're solving it together. Outside, station officials noted the progress. The combination of human adaptability and alien technology was unprecedented, and while they remained cautious, they allowed the approach to continue. As the cycles passed, the resonance became increasingly manageable. Kiri's nervous energy lessened. She was still small and fragile compared to the humans and other aliens on the station, but she began to stand taller, trusting that her body could respond to guidance rather than panic. One evening, as the cycle quieted and the hum faded, Kiri sat on the floor near the barrier, her knees pulled to her chest. Elias leaned against the wall across from her, exhausted but steady. You've changed everything, she said softly. Not just for me, for my people. How? He asked. The Lethari thought this was unfixable, she said. That humans couldn't help, that our biology was incompatible with outside minds. But now we see it's possible. There's a chance for others in the future. Elias smiled faintly. Sometimes that's what being human is. We make a mess and then we find a way to fix it. Kiri nodded. I never imagined I would say this, but I'm glad it was you. The words hit him softly. He hadn't expected gratitude to feel like that, not in the middle of a crisis. I'm glad too, he said, because you're not alone anymore. The night passed quietly. The station hummed outside, life continuing on its massive rotating rings. Inside the bedchamber, the impossible partnership between human and tiny alien had begun to work. Step by step, they were rewriting what was possible, challenging old rules and proving that connection, trust, patience, guidance, was as important as any technology. By the end of the cycle, the resonance had stabilized enough for station authorities to allow a small adjustment, monitored access beyond the barrier. Kiri could move freely in her own room, though the barrier remained as a precaution. Elias watched her step out, careful not to intrude. She looked at him, eyes shining with quiet triumph. Thank you, she said again. You did all the work, he replied, smiling. I just helped you see it wasn't impossible. Her tiny shoulders relaxed for the first time since the crisis began. Elias knew the real challenge wasn't over yet. There would be more cycles, more adjustments, more surprises. But for the first time, they had hope. And that hope changed everything. The galaxy had once again underestimated humans, not as warriors but as problem solvers. Creatures of logic and empathy, capable of navigating impossible situations, of influencing others without force. Inside the bedchamber, Kiri finally allowed herself a full breath. For the first time in weeks, she felt safe. And beside her, Elias remained, calm and steady as ever, ready to face the next challenge together. Whatever the future held, they would meet it side by side, and nothing, not misunderstanding, not fear, not ancient biology, would stop them. For humanity had once again proven its greatest power, not in conquest, not in weapons, but in presence. And now, the galaxy was learning that lesson the hard way. The morning air inside the bedchamber felt lighter than it had in weeks. Kiri stretched slowly, her small frame moving with a newfound confidence, a sharp contrast to the trembling and panic that had consumed her before. Elias was awake before her, standing by the panel that monitored her neural resonance. He didn't need to check the numbers anymore. They were stable, predictable, and well within safe limits. "Morning," he said softly. Kiri turned, her large eyes locking with his. She smiled, this time without hesitation or fear. "Morning," she replied. It was a small word, but it carried the weight of weeks of tension, fear, and uncertainty. Elias stepped closer, careful to respect the boundaries that still existed around the energy barrier. The barrier had been adjusted overnight to allow Kiri freedom of movement while keeping the monitoring systems active. The system no longer glowed ominously. Instead, it radiated a soft, warm light, like it recognized the calm between them. "You've done well," Elias said, glancing at her readings. "The resonance is maintaining itself even without my constant guidance." Kiri shook her head slightly, still humbled by the process. "We've done this together," she said. "Without you, I wouldn't have known how to manage it. The station systems alone, they would have overwhelmed me." Elias smiled faintly. "I only helped you trust yourself. That's all humans can really do." She paused, then stepped closer, cautiously crossing the floor. She reached out, lightly brushing her fingers against the panel that separated them from the monitoring system. For the first time, the energy barrier felt more like a protective wall than a prison. "Elias," she began, hesitating. "The authorities, the station, they're still watching. How much longer do we have to remain under supervision?" "They'll continue observation for a few more cycles," he said. "But the trend is clear. You're stable. And even if something unexpected comes up, I'll be here to help you work through it." Kiri's large eyes softened. She had spent so long fearing the unknown, fearing that her life and her future were at the mercy of forces she couldn't control. Now she was beginning to feel a sense of safety, a rare gift in a galaxy that had always seemed unpredictable to her species. "Elias," she said quietly, "I don't think my people or the rest of the galaxy understand what you've done." He raised an eyebrow. "And what is that?" "You've changed how they see humans," she replied. "Not as dangerous or reckless, not as intrusive or reckless problem solvers, but as partners, as creatures who can adapt, who can help, who can guide without taking control. You've redefined what a human can be." Elias paused. It was the first time someone had described humans in that way to him. He wasn't used to compliments, especially not ones with that much weight behind them. "I didn't do it alone," he said softly. "You did the hard work. I only helped you see that it was possible." Kiri stepped closer, now just a short distance from him. Her presence, small but commanding, carried the weight of weeks of fear, relief, and cautious hope. "Elias, there's something I want to ask you." He tilted his head, curious. "Go on." She hesitated for a moment, then spoke with quiet determination. "Will you stay? Not just here, not just for the cycles, but longer, with me in this space. I don't want to face the unknown alone again." Elias' heart thumped and he swallowed hard. Her words were not a plea born of fear. They were a choice, a statement of trust, and he understood exactly how rare that trust was. "I'm not going anywhere," he said firmly. "As long as you want me here, I'll stay. That's a human promise." Kiri's lips curved into a small but genuine smile. She stepped closer, now within arm's reach. For the first time, the barrier between them felt almost irrelevant, more like a gentle reminder than a wall. The station authorities are going to be very surprised, she said softly. They expected me to be fragile, to need constant protection, but now you've proven that humans don't just stumble into situations, they fix them. And they do it without fear, without expectation of reward. You've saved me. I didn't save you, Elias said, shaking his head. We did this together. Humans can't do everything alone, Kiri, and neither can anyone else. It's trust, teamwork, patience. That's what matters. Her eyes glimmered with unshed tears, but they were not tears of fear. They were tears of relief, admiration, and hope. She reached out carefully and placed a small hand against the barrier, just above where his hand hovered on the other side. The sensors detected proximity but allowed the gentle touch to pass. I trust you, she whispered. And I trust you, he replied. Completely. For the first time in weeks, both of them felt a sense of true calm. The resonance had stabilized, their bond had strengthened, and the galaxy's observers had witnessed something extraordinary. A human and an alien overcoming fear, misunderstanding, and unknown biological challenges through cooperation and empathy. Weeks passed. The station slowly began to release them from strict monitoring. Kiri could move freely within her quarters, and Elias continued to live alongside her without restriction. Scientists and officials still observed from a distance, documenting the unique interaction between human cognitive patterns and alien physiology. The research alone would change protocols across the galaxy. Kiri and Elias settled into a routine. Each day, they worked together to fine-tune her biological cycles, using both technology and human-guided techniques. They laughed together, shared stories of their respective worlds, and discovered an unexpected friendship blossoming amidst the chaos. One afternoon, as Elias adjusted a neural dampening device to ensure Kiri's comfort, she looked at him seriously. "You've changed my perspective on humans," she said. "I thought you were reckless, chaotic, and unpredictable. But you've shown me patience, courage, adaptability, and strength. Your species has remarkable qualities." Elias chuckled softly. "Funny," he said. "I was thinking the same thing about your species. You're brilliant, cautious, and more resilient than anyone expects. And also stubborn." Kiri raised an eyebrow, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I see you've learned our language of subtle compliments." "And I've learned that subtle doesn't always mean better," he replied, grinning. Their work continued. With each cycle, Kiri's body adapted more completely to the presence of a human mind, and Elias' patience and guidance allowed her to thrive in ways that would have seemed impossible at the start. The station began to recognize the outcome. Other species took note as well. Humans were no longer merely considered unpredictable, potentially dangerous guests. They were acknowledged as problem solvers, stabilizers, and partners capable of handling biological, social, and technical challenges that had never been faced before. Kiri turned to Elias one evening as they reviewed the day's data. "Do you realize what this means?" she asked. "What?" he replied, tired but alert. "This research, your presence, our work together," she said. "It means that humans are officially recognized as a force of change. Not through force or weapons, but through cooperation and ingenuity. We have rewritten interspecies understanding." Elias considered her words. "That's bigger than I expected." "It is," she agreed, "but I also think it's beautiful. The galaxy will never see humans the same way again." They sat in silence for a moment, looking out at the glowing ring of the space station through the observation panel. Stars stretched into infinity, the vastness of space around them, yet within the small room, two beings, human and alien, had created stability, trust, and mutual respect where none had existed before. Kiri finally stood and crossed the room to the panel, tapping it gently. The barrier remained as a precaution, but it was no longer restrictive. It was a symbol of cooperation, of the balance they had achieved. "Thank you, Elias," she said softly, turning to face him fully. "For staying, for trusting me, for helping me survive when no one else could." Elias stepped forward closer than he had before, but careful to respect the space they had earned. "And thank you, Kiri," he replied, "for trusting me, for letting me help, for showing me how much humans can matter just by being present." She tilted her head, studying him. "So we continue. Of course," he said. "We keep going, step by step, cycle by cycle, together." And with that, the chamber was no longer a place of fear. It was a place of partnership, learning, and understanding. Outside, the station continued its monitoring, but the crisis had passed. Humans had proven their adaptability once more, not with weapons or intimidation, but with patience, logic, empathy, and courage. Kiri finally relaxed completely. Her body, her mind, and her spirit had adjusted to the presence of a human beside her. She no longer feared the unknown, for she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, Elias would face them with her and she with him. Elias looked at her and smiled, ready for the next cycle. She laughed softly, a sound full of relief and joy. "Yes, but this time I think we can handle it together." And together, human and alien moved forward, the galaxy quietly taking notice. Their bond, forged in misunderstanding and fear, had transformed into a partnership that would reshape how different species perceived humans forever. Humanity had once again proven its power, not in conquest, not in weapons, but in presence, intelligence, and the willingness to face the impossible with courage and trust. And in the quiet of that chamber, Kiri and Elias knew that they were stronger together, ready to meet whatever the stars had in store.